Um, on the topic of SOC modernization, before we kind of get into the weeds of it, I see two trends that are happening in the industry, and there are two simultaneous trends. One is the enterprise transformation that is starting to happen, where CISOs and SOC managers are looking into significantly upgrading their architectures for the purpose of handling newer workloads that they hadn't handled before, for the purposes of making up for the talent shortage that we constantly find ourselves in. So there's a lot of that upgrading of the environment happening as we speak. The second trend that's simultaneously happening is some of the newer born on the cloud or cloud native younger companies, not necessarily smaller, but younger, who have had the luxury of starting up on the cloud, are able to leapfrog, and they discard the paradigms and the labels that we put in the industry like log management and SIM and SOAR and XDR, and go straight to the solution. Those two trends in the two different segments we're talking about are really converging into one place. The solution really is a more modern stack.
When you think of transformation, it's not an evolution that has an ending. I mean, the CISO role is going to continue to evolve. The security threats are going to continue to evolve. So we have to evolve as well. So I hope we never get to a point where we think we solved this, because I think if we do, then we're just blind. What I'm looking at from a transformation perspective, I've been in security for 25 years, and there was a time we talked about just throwing bodies at the problem, just throw more bodies at the problem. But with 3 million, I think the last stat I saw was like a 3 million person shortage in the cyber industry. It's just not an option. You can't throw bodies at a problem when you don't have the bodies to do that. So we have to look at how we get better at modernizing the technology that we use. So what we're looking at here is a lot of automation. So, and I think it's interesting, we talk a lot about technical debt and how that, especially for those bigger companies, I don't have the luxury of being that newer company that's all cloud native. I do have a lot of older infrastructure. And I think about technical debt, but I also think the security teams are starting to carry some technical debt. Some of that is how they service, how they process, how they do certain things. And we have to kind of pull that up and automate a ton of that. There's just no other way. If I don't automate this, there's no other way that I can get ahead of the risks that I have. And secondarily, as I do that, it allows the resources I have to come up from a skills perspective, from a knowledge perspective. They get to do more exciting things, get involved in more new technologies and things like that. But that will never happen if I don't start modernizing that stack and get them the ability to do that. So they're not having to deal with, back to Karthik's point, they're not having to manage these old legacy monoliths, these old systems, managing all these rule sets. I mean, I remember my team 10 years ago, some of the rules they had built in Splunk were just absolutely, I mean, from a nerd perspective, they were super cool. But as you think of how we progress today with the volumes of data and the numbers of tools that we have, how they do like basic detection engineering, it's just not the same anymore. And so how we look at that and how we automate that and how we make their job easier is just so incredibly important.
And I talked to a lot of security leaders across Snowflake's customers. I think this concept of SOC modernization is very, very much top of mind right now. And it's because the challenges have been changing, right? If we think about the move to the cloud, Snowflake is only in the cloud. So all of our customers are in some stage of this kind of big journey up into the cloud. And that changes. It changes what risk looks like. It changes how fast threats are able to move. And so that's a pretty scary dynamic. We have the work from home, which is another thing that we need to take into account and deal with, requires transformation. At the same time, there are these opportunities to take advantage of. So Jade, you mentioned shift left. I think that's definitely relevant. We have infrastructure as code. We see detections as code, opens up a lot of opportunities. Also, the opportunity for the security team to tap into the central data platform that the rest of the enterprise is using. That presents more opportunities to move away from managing logs and dealing with ingest limits, retention limits, et cetera, and focus on just more automation, right? So a lot of opportunity around SOC modernization, but not without its challenges too. So I'm glad we get to talk about that today.
Yeah.